I can't wait for college football Saturday this week. We've got 3 ranked-on-ranked matchups and also Michigan at Nebraska. That's where CBS Sports HQ is going to be for our pregame show, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. in Lincoln, Nebraska for the Cornhuskers, looking for their first ranked win in nearly a decade. That's crazy to think about, taking on Michigan. Let's get Shehan, Jeyarajah, and Chip Patterson in here breaking down how each of these games could be won. And we'll start with the early game, like really early out west. A 10 a.m. local time kick in Utah as the Utes host Texas Tech. This could be the game of the year in the Big 12 as the first Big 12 game of the season. And both of you guys are looking to the trenches for this one. Shehan, you did a ton of reporting in the offseason about Texas Tech and what they did in the portal. Spent a ton of money there this offseason, and most notably on that defensive line.
Yeah, well, when you look at this matchup, the most exciting part of it is this is best on best. Texas Tech's defensive line was the top target of their investment, like you mentioned, and they have multiple players, maybe even as many as 4 on that defensive line that they think can be top 100 picks in the 2026 NFL draft. Those defensive ends, especially David Bailey and Romello Height, have been tremendous through the first 3 games of the year. 6 tackles for loss, 5 sacks between the 2 of them. I spoke to Romello Height before the year. He said his goal is to set the all-time Texas Tech sack record in a season with 15. He's already at 2.5. He's off to a good start. But then that Utah offensive line is potentially just as talented. 2 tackles in Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano also projected as potential first-round picks. They're really experienced in the interior. The game will be won and lost depending on who wins this matchup.
And Chip, you're also looking at the trenches, but when the other team has the ball, tell us about it.
Yeah, because Texas Tech quarterback Behren Morton has had enough time to make a sandwich, do his taxes, and basically doom scroll through his social media feed because that offensive line has given him so much protection. Some of that, of course, has to do with the quality of the opponents that we've seen Texas Tech play so far. And now we are starting to see whether Behren Morton can be as effective and as efficient when he's got John Henry Daly coming in his face, because Utah's defensive front is absolutely terrifying, and they are 100% going to speed him up and try to get him off his mark, because while Behren Morton does a very good job of being able to dissect the defense and find the open man, he is not necessarily the most mobile quarterback, and he is definitely not the more mobile quarterback in this particular matchup. So both these teams have just absolutely laid waste to their opponents so far. There's going to be a little bit of a fact-finding mission in terms of figuring out the strengths and weaknesses against quality competition. And one thing that I'm looking at is that Behren Morton's been very, very good, but he has had a lot of time and not a lot of pressure. What happens when Utah speeds that clock up? That's going to be a big X factor in this game.
And the Muss is going to be rocking bright and early. They're really disappointed with what happened their first year in the Big 12. They totally laid an egg. They feel like this is the year they announced their arrival in the Big 12. Let's go to the SEC for a juicy revenge game. Auburn quarterback Jackson Arnold returning to the site of a bunch of bad performances last season when he was the starter in Norman, Oklahoma. Chip, what kind of a greeting do you think he'll get from fans and that OU staff?
Yeah, I think it's the OU staff that's going to be giving the most important greeting, and that is going through and giving Jackson Arnold all of the plays that he screwed up in practice when he was the quarterback at Oklahoma. You know, you go through the Exos app, you sort by interception, you sort by turnover, you sort by bad throw, and then you go back and you give them all of those defensive looks. Now, in the pass the chalk argument, you could tell me that Jackson Arnold has grown and that he will be able to help Hugh Freeze and his multiple game planner play callers on the offensive staff put together something that can try to stay ahead of this. But the way that Oklahoma's defense has been playing so far this year, which, don't get it twisted, has the Sooners with one of the best defenses in the SEC and maybe in the entire country, I think that that is one spot where Jackson Arnold going into Norman really has to do with the greeting that he's going to get from Brent Venables and this defensive staff, which know all of the things that caused Jackson Arnold to fail to be the quarterback that many thought he would be when he showed up for the Sooners.
Shehan?
Yeah, well, I think that it's a huge matchup for Jackson Arnold, like you mentioned. And with that particular matchup, I'm looking at Jackson Arnold in the passing game. Because while he's been great as a runner so far this year, we haven't seen him go down the field. They have one of the best wide receiver cores in the country at Auburn. But I was in town for that Baylor game. They almost shut down that passing offense because they were able to run the ball at such a high level. That's not going to be the case against an Oklahoma defensive line. That's one of the best in the Southeastern Conference. I'm worried about that matchup. I don't know how Jackson Arnold's going to handle that moment. And I think that the big key to this game is if you are able to keep him in structure, if you're able to prevent him from breaking off some of these runs, I don't know if he has the goods as a passer right now to go out and win this game on his own. Whereas on the other side of the ball, I know that John Mateer has those goods as a creator and as a passer. So it's going to be a big matchup for this. And this is a huge prove-it spot for Jackson Arnold coming back to the place where obviously he was so recently run off.
Two prominent programs, two name brands back in the top 25, looking to make that leap this season. How about a couple of oft-maligned programs in the Big Ten, programs on the rise? We saw what Indiana did last season, making the college football playoff. They're in the top 20 again. Number 9, Illinois, is on the road in this spot at IU. And, Chip, there's a big injury for the Fighting Illini. Xavier Scott, the first-team All-Big Ten cornerback, is not expected to play. How does Indiana take advantage of that?
With Fernando Mendoza and a passing attack that has gotten better and better each week. Fernando Mendoza, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about completion percentage, yards per attempt, passer rating, all of it has gotten better with each week of finally getting in and getting settled in Coach Shanahan's offense. This Indiana team, week 1 against Old Dominion, did not do a good job of finishing drives and punching it in. And Curt Cignetti, he definitely let the team hear about it. Now, I'm willing to admit that from Old Dominion to Kennesaw to Indiana State, the competition has gone down with each game, so maybe we shouldn't overreact to Fernando Mendoza's numbers getting better, but I happen to believe that especially with the Xavier Scott injury news, this is going to be an Indiana offense that's going to cook, and this is going to be a game that might be a little bit higher scoring than you would imagine if you just think, oh yeah, Illinois-Indiana, Big Ten game. You think it's going to be a slobber knocker. Well, with Fernando Mendoza on one side, Luke Altmyer on the other, I kind of think this might be a little bit of a shootout where the first team that gets to 35 might be the one that's going to be able to win this football game. So I think that Indiana will start fast. I think they will try to pick on the replacement for Scott. And if they can do that and get a leg up, force Illinois to chase a little bit, they might be able to hold on for a big home win early in the season.
And you mentioned, without Xavier Scott in the lineup, I think that it's going to be incumbent on Illinois' offense to really show up in this game. Luke Altmyer, like you mentioned, and very experienced quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks that Illinois has had in a very long time. And this offense has been dynamic. You look at the second half of that game against Duke early in the year. They were able to put them away because they put together some explosive plays. Now, they've still been growing through the loss of 2 receivers to the NFL, including Pat Bryant, their top overall receiver. But I think that they've done a really good job of developing young talent behind them. So this is a game where I think that Illinois' offense really has to show up, even against an Indiana defense that really could be one of the best in the Big Ten.
I feel like we're going to get Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon in the college football playoff from the Big Ten. The winner of this game is going to have a nice jump start to maybe becoming that 4th team in the Big Ten to get in. Let's move to our Big Ten game of the week, a huge one in Lincoln, Nebraska. It feels like a toss-up. Vegas basically calling it a toss-up with Michigan favored by 2.5. Yet, Chip, Nebraska has lost 27 straight to ranked teams. I've seen some Nebraska fans say this is their biggest moment in a decade. Do you agree?
Yes, I do, because of the way that we would talk about Matt Rule's program on the other side of what could potentially be a Nebraska win. It would be the kind of victory that would start to really reframe where Nebraska sits, because while Michigan does have a true freshman quarterback playing on the road, and while Michigan is not the team that won the national championship, Michigan is a ranked team, and Michigan is still Michigan. So for Nebraska to be able to answer the call and rise to the moment, that would just just be something that we haven't really seen. Now, the Cornhuskers got off to a good start last season, but then we started to see everything derail probably about this time of year, right around the Illinois loss on that Friday night. And so I wonder if Dylan Raiola, Matt Rule, and the rest of this Nebraska team are going to be able to sort of rewrite the narrative of what this team can do, because I truly believe that the ghosts that haunt Nebraska from all of these one-score losses and all of these losses to ranked opponents, if you all of a sudden flip that, then you start to get one of the most dangerous things for Nebraska's future opponents, and that is some real belief. Matt Rule is a very, very, very good college football coach, and part of that is his ability to inspire college football players in a unique way. Now, if they can get this kind of win, things start to turn in terms of what can be expected from the Huskers. And you talked about the college football playoff picture, with that Indiana-Illinois game. I mean, let Nebraska win this, and now all of a sudden they're going to start talking CFP in Lincoln.
And you mentioned the word dangerous. You want to know what's dangerous? Year 3, Matt Rule. At his first stop at Temple, he had Temple with 10 wins and an appearance in the American Championship game. In his third year at Baylor, 10 wins, an appearance in the Big 12 Championship game. This is year 3 for Matt Rule, and that's usually when you start to see his teams come along. Now, I'll say this too. This, I think, is a must-win spot for Nebraska, not only because it's a good opportunity, but also, you mentioned, this is still Michigan, but this hasn't looked like Michigan in the way that we think, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, the way that they struggled against John Mateer with some of the passes that he was getting off. I mean, there was the one pass where he's like fading backwards, throws it off his back foot, and it lands right in a receiver's lap. Those are the kind of plays that Michigan would have never allowed the past couple of years. And in Dylan Raiola, they have one of the young, exciting quarterbacks in the country. This is a potential breakout spot for him. And if Nebraska wants to be serious about being in the midst of their rebuild under Matt Rule, this is the kind of game that you can't let get away.
Shehan, Chip, thank you so much. Really looking forward to the games this weekend, especially that one on CBS, and we will have it featured prominently here on CBS Sports HQ. Our crew is on the way this Thursday to good old Lincoln, Nebraska. It's said to be the largest city in Nebraska on game day, with everybody flooding in from all corners of the state, and Omaha, a sea of red for Nebraska and the maize and blue. Saturday, 3:30 Eastern time on CBS and Paramount Plus, and we are live from 9 a.m. until noon, leading you up to the early kicks from the rail yard in Lincoln.